Did you know that some of the biggest threats to the United States ecosystem don't come with weapons, but with roots, paws, or tusks? Today, we embark on a journey through 20 invasive species that have caused massive destruction, invading rivers, forests, farms, and even entire cities. From plants that suffocate crops to animals that wipe out native species, these invaders didn't ask for permission to enter and are leaving a trail of devastation. Get ready to meet North America's most feared invaders. But before we begin, subscribe to our channel and leave a like. Now, let's get started. Number 1. Nutria, the rodent disguised as a beaver, called Nutria or Myocastor coipus. This semi-aquatic rodent came from South America to the United States in the early 20th century for commercial purposes, as its fur was valuable. However, many escaped or were released and are now spread across more than 15 states, including Louisiana, Texas, and California. Reaching up to 96 centimeters in length, they dig riverbanks, damaging dikes, canals, and hydraulic infrastructure. Their diet, based on wetland vegetation, destroys native habitats and destabilizes aquatic ecosystems. Besides causing millions of dollars in annual damage, they compete with native species for food and shelter, becoming a persistent threat to biodiversity. Producing this video was an intense journey of research, learning, and admiration, but also a warning. By diving into the history of these invasive species, I realized how small oversights can turn into silent ecological disasters. My goal was not just to inform, but to provoke reflection. Are we really aware of the consequences that certain human choices can have on the balance of nature? Every script, every image was designed to awaken this sense of collective responsibility. Number 2. Cane toad, the toxic amphibian that became a global threat. Native to Central and South America, the cane toad, also known as Rhinella marina, was introduced in several countries as a biological solution to control agricultural pests. The most famous case happened in Australia in 1935, when 100 of them were released in sugarcane plantations. The result was an environmental catastrophe. Each female can lay up to 30,000 eggs per clutch. Its skin and glands release a potent venom, bufatoxin, capable of killing snakes, lizards, small mammals, and even pets. In the United States, this toad already occupies areas of Florida and threatens local species that have no natural defenses against its toxin. Without natural predators and with a high reproduction rate, the population spreads uncontrollably, putting fragile ecosystems such as swamps and subtropical forests at risk. Number 3. American mink, invasive predators and ecosystem tragedy. American mink, Neovisson visson, originally native to North America, are small carnivorous mammals that became a symbol of ecological invasion when introduced to regions far from their natural habitat. With dense, soft, dark fur adapted to cold and wet environments, these animals were highly sought after for their pelts, making them central figures in a global industry during the 20th century. Between the 1920s and 1970s, mink were exported to various countries in Europe and Asia for intensive farming, aimed at supplying the luxury fashion market, where mink coats and accessories symbolized wealth and prestige. However, the beauty of their fur and the profitability of farming had a devastating effect on local ecosystems. Many mink escaped from farms or were released intentionally or accidentally and established themselves in the wild. They quickly began reproducing, forming stable and highly invasive populations. The reproductive capacity of these small predators, combined with their adaptability, made them efficient threats to native species unaccustomed to such skilled predators. Agile, fast, and voracious, American mink hunt a wide variety of prey. They catch fish in rivers and lakes, capture crustaceans in wetlands, pursue nesting waterfowl, and even attack rodents and small mammals. This generalist diet makes them extremely efficient predators, capable of exploiting nearly all available food niches in new habitats. Their versatility and aggressiveness fuel their invasive success, but also amplify their impact on native species. One of the most dramatic examples occurred in the United Kingdom, where American mink were blamed for the devastating decline of European water vole, Arvicola amphibious populations. In certain areas, up to 94% of the water vole population disappeared after mink colonization. The European water vole, a peaceful animal poorly equipped to evade such agile predators, was nearly wiped out. Its relatively slow behavior and dependence on complex aquatic habitats habitats offered little resistance against the ferocity of the invasive mink. The consequence was not just the loss of a species, the entire ecosystem suffered. Water voles perform critical ecological functions such as seed dispersal and maintenance of riparian vegetation. Their decline affected other species, altered the dynamics of rivers and ponds, and changed the composition of shoreline vegetation. The impact of mink is not limited to Europe. In Asia, where they were also introduced, the scenario repeats. In coastal and forested areas, these predators invade habitats of water birds, amphibians, and small mammals, directly competing with native predators and often causing local scarcity. The introduction of an apparently harmless animal for economic purposes became an environmental disaster, demonstrating that any human intervention outside natural balance can have irreversible consequences. Beyond ecological impacts, American mink pose management and conservation challenges. Eradication or population control programs are complex and costly, capturing them in large and difficult to access territories where rivers, lakes, and dense vegetation facilitate evasion requires ongoing effort. Some regions use traps and rigorous monitoring, but even then, mink reproduction often outpaces human control attempts. The paradox is evident. An industry built on exploiting an aesthetic trait, the luxurious fur, ended up creating a global ecological threat. A species once prized for coats and accessories became a villain for biodiversity. The story of American mink is thus a powerful warning against introducing exotic species into new environments. It shows how economic decisions can have profound and lasting ecological consequences, affecting native species survival and altering entire ecosystems. Number 4. Burmese python, the Everglades nightmare. The Burmese python, Python bivitatus, is one of the largest snakes in the world, a creature both elegant and dangerous. Native to Southeast Asia, where it inhabits tropical forests, mangroves, and swamps, this species is known for its immense strength, opportunistic behavior, and ability to adapt to different environments. In its natural habitat, it faces predators and climatic conditions that regulate its population, but when transported to alien regions, it can become a devastating force. In the Florida Everglades, the Burmese python found nearly perfect conditions to thrive. The subtropical climate, extensive wetlands, and abundance of native prey turned this American paradise into a vulnerable ecosystem. With no natural predators, these snakes grow quickly, reaching over 5 meters in length, with some exceptions hitting an impressive 7 meters or more. Their powerful muscles allow them to constrict prey much larger than most snakes in the region, making them top predators. The introduction of the Burmese python into the Everglades was not natural. It mainly stems from the exotic pet trade and human fascination with giant snakes. Many pythons were brought into private collections as status symbols, but occasional storms and hurricanes destroyed enclosures or allowed animals to escape into the wild. Once released, these snakes found fragile ecosystems with no natural enemies to control them. The ecological impact is devastating. Burmese pythons prey on birds, small and medium-sized mammals, reptiles, and even young alligators, drastically altering the composition of local populations. Native species such as Florida lynxes, raccoons, opossums, and young deer have faced significant population declines due to direct predation or competition for food. Studies show that in certain Everglades areas, native mammal densities dropped by more than 90% since the arrival of pythons. This ecosystem alteration affects not only fauna, but also triggers cascading effects, modifying habitats, food chains, and even seed dispersal of animal-dependent plants. The behavior of the Burmese python contributes to its effectiveness as a predator. It is stealthy, silent, and nocturnal, using natural camouflage with brown, beige, and black skin patterns to hide in dense vegetation. Constriction is its hunting technique. Upon detecting prey, it wraps its muscular body around the animal, compressing until blood circulation and respiration cease. After hunting, it can go weeks without feeding, awaiting the next opportunity. This slow metabolism combined with hunting efficiency makes the snake incredibly resilient and difficult to control. Reproduction also amplifies the invasion. Females can lay up to 100 eggs per year, hiding them in safe spots in the swamp. Survival rates are high due to the absence of effective native predators. Hatchlings are born with sharp hunting instincts, starting the top predator cycle early. High fecundity, combined with the species' longevity, ensures populations continue to grow even with human efforts to capture and remove them. Controlling the Burmese python is a Herculean challenge. Professional hunters, scientists, and wildlife management teams dedicate enormous resources to capture adults and juveniles using traps, bait, and sophisticated tracking methods. Despite Despite this, the snake's elusive nature, combined with the vast Everglades habitat, makes the effort ongoing and costly, without guarantee of total success. Every captured python is a victory, but thousands still evade detection. The case of the Burmese python is a stark example of how exotic species can become invasive when introduced outside their natural habitats. The exotic pet trade, combined with natural disasters or human negligence, creates a cycle of ecological destruction that is difficult to stop. The Everglades, a unique and fragile ecosystem, now faces a constant threat that permanently alters its natural balance. Number 5. European starlings, poetry turned plague. European starlings, Sturnus vulgaris, are small birds with dark plumage and iridescent metallic reflections, known for their intelligence, sociability, and remarkable adaptability. Native to Europe and parts of Asia, these birds have long been admired for their melodious songs and their synchronized flight patterns in huge flocks, a phenomenon called murmuration, which fascinates observers in parks and fields. However, the history of starlings in North America is one of the most iconic examples of how human intervention, even with the best intentions, can have devastating ecological consequences. In 1890, a woman named Jane Schieffelin decided to honor the playwright William Shakespeare by releasing 60 European starlings into Central Park, New York City. The idea was poetic. She wanted the birds, known for their complex songs and contagious energy, to fill the city with music and commemorate the poet's legacy. But what seemed like a charming gesture turned into an uncontrollable ecological phenomenon. These few dozen birds found an extremely favorable environment with no significant natural predators and abundant food. They reproduced rapidly. In less than a century, European starlings multiplied explosively, reaching over 200 million individuals spread across North America. Their adaptability is impressive. They can live in densely populated cities, agricultural areas, or fragmented forests, using any available cavity for nesting, including buildings, power poles, and even tree holes previously occupied by native birds. This versatility makes them formidable competitors, and many local species, including songbirds and small mammals, were displaced or saw their populations drastically reduced. The impact of starlings goes beyond direct competition. Their large flocks produce enormous amounts of droppings, which accumulate on trees, rooftops, and public areas. These wastes not only damage urban structures, but also carry diseases such as cryptococcosis, histoplasmosis, and salmonellosis, affecting human and animal health. The spread of pathogens through droppings makes starlings a biological threat in addition to their ecological impact, making their control a public health concern. Ecologically, the European starling is an opportunistic predator. It feeds on insects, seeds, fruits, and small invertebrates. In agricultural areas, it can cause significant damage by consuming large quantities of grains and ripe fruits. On the other hand, their presence may help control certain pests, but this does not compensate for the harm caused to local biodiversity. By occupying ecological niches, they displace native birds, especially cavity-dependent species like woodpeckers, cavity-nesting sparrows, and small owls. In many regions, these native birds face population declines directly linked to the presence of starlings. The success of starlings in North America is due to several adaptive traits: high reproductive rates, cooperative social behavior, dietary flexibility, and resistance to diseases affecting other birds. Flocks can number in the thousands, flying in coordinated patterns that confuse predators and efficiently exploit food resources. They learn from each other, demonstrating culture and memory of migratory routes and feeding areas, further increasing their invasive success. What began as an artistic and poetic gesture, therefore, became a biological plague with far-reaching consequences for ecosystems, agriculture, and public health. The story of European starlings serves as a warning about introducing species outside their natural habitats. Even noble or symbolic intentions can produce irreversible impacts, reminding us that ecological balance is fragile and that every human action in the environment must be carefully considered. Currently, management efforts include rigorous monitoring, installation of deterrent devices in urban and agricultural areas, and public education about the risks of invasive species. Number 6. Red-eared slider, the gift that became a pest. The red-eared slider, Trichame scripta elegans, is one of the most well-known turtle species in the world, but its commercial success has turned into a global ecological and health problem native to the southeastern United States, in states like Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. It gained international popularity during the 1980s and 1990s as a pet. With its appealing small size as a juvenile, vibrant colors, red-marked ears, and seemingly docile behavior, the species was sold by the millions, becoming the symbol of the perfect pet for children and families. However, the red-eared slider has a characteristic that turned what seemed an innocent gift into a pest: its continuous growth and longevity. Young turtles fit comfortably in small aquariums, but as they mature, they can exceed 25 to 30 centimeters in length and live over 30 years. Many unprepared owners abandoned the animals when they realized they could no longer care for them, releasing them into lakes, rivers, swamps, and urban canals. The result was the uncontrolled proliferation of the species in habitats that were not originally theirs. The invasion of Trichame scripta elegans had devastating ecological effects. In the United States, especially in California, Florida, Texas, and Oregon, these turtles directly compete with native species such as the western painted turtle, Chrysamis pictabelli, the Florida softshell turtle, and various other aquatic turtle populations. They occupy the same nests, feeding areas, and resting sites, drastically reducing the reproductive success of local species. Additionally, their omnivorous diet, which includes insects, mollusks, fish, and aquatic vegetation, alters the composition of aquatic communities, causing food chain imbalances. Another critical factor is pathogen dispersion. The red-eared slider is a natural carrier of Salmonella, a bacterium potentially dangerous to humans and animals. Studies have shown that these animals can also carry antibiotic-resistant strains, representing a health threat where the species becomes abundant. Children and adults handling turtles without proper care can contract infections, and contamination of water bodies by turtle feces increases the risk of salmonellosis outbreaks. Globally, the situation is equally concerning. The species has been introduced on almost every continent, whether through illegal trade or domestic abandonment. In Europe, Asia, South America, and Oceania, established red-eared slider populations compete with native turtles and threaten fragile aquatic ecosystems. Some countries have laws restricting import and ownership of the species, but control is difficult due to clandestine trade and the longevity of already released individuals. The red-eared slider also shows remarkable adaptability. It can survive in various water types, from lakes and rivers to urban reservoirs and polluted canals. It tolerates temperature and oxygen variations, and its slow metabolism allows prolonged periods without food. This resilience, combined with the absence of natural predators outside its original habitat, ensures the species thrives, increasing its invasive impact year by year. The case of the red-eared slider is emblematic of how the combination of exotic pet trade, lack of information, and human behavior can generate a global ecological crisis. What began as a charming pet has turned into a threat affecting biodiversity, public health, and environmental balance. Management studies include physical removal of individuals, public education on the risks of abandonment, and legal restrictions on sale, but efforts face significant logistical and cultural obstacles. In summary, the red-eared slider is not just a symbol of exotic pets. It is a reminder that every species introduced outside its original ecosystem carries the potential for unexpected and lasting consequences. Number 7. Asian carp, the jumping monsters. Asian carp, hypophthalmic thighs SPP, also known as bighead and silver carp, are a frightening example of how introduced species can become invasive with dramatic impacts on entire ecosystems. Native to East Asia, especially China, they were introduced to the United States in the 1970s for an apparently beneficial purpose: to control algae growth and clean fish farming ponds. However, this human intervention turned into a large-scale environmental disaster. Due to flooding, these carp escaped into the Mississippi River and its tributaries, establishing wild populations that multiplied rapidly. Today, they are considered one of the most invasive aquatic species in North America. Among them, the silver carp, hypophthalmic thighs molatrix, is the most feared. Reaching over 1 meter in length and up to 45 kg, their massive presence drastically alters aquatic ecosystem dynamics. Asian carp have a specialized diet. They consume large amounts of phytoplankton and zooplankton, directly competing competing with native species such as bass, largemouth bass, and other filter-feeding fish. In some lakes and rivers of the Mississippi, they represent up to 30% of the total fish biomass, causing collapses in the food chain and significant reductions in aquatic biodiversity. Their rapid proliferation also alters water quality, increasing turbidity and changing nutrient availability for native plants and algae. Their behavior is equally impressive and dangerous. When threatened by boats, jet skis, or fishermen, they can jump up to 3 meters out of the water. These jumps, often unexpected and violent, can hit people and boats with considerable force, causing serious injuries and property damage. This phenomenon earned them the nickname jumping monsters, turning simple boating trips into risky experiences, especially in carp-infested river stretches. Another critical aspect of the invasion is their reproduction speed. Asian carp can reach sexual maturity in just a few years and lay millions of eggs in a single breeding season. This explosive growth potential, combined with the absence of natural predators in North American rivers, allows their population to expand almost uncontrollably. If they reach the Great Lakes, experts warn of devastating impacts. Native species would be quickly overrun, entire ecosystems would be transformed, and commercial and recreational fishing would suffer massive losses. A true underwater fire difficult to contain. Containment efforts include electric barriers, mechanical removal, and intensive fishing campaigns, but these measures face significant logistical and economic challenges. The warning about Asian carp goes beyond North America. Other continents receiving exotic species without planning face the risk of similar invasions, highlighting the fragility of aquatic ecosystems in the face of human action. In summary, Asian carp are not just big jumping fish. They are symbols of how introducing exotic species can generate ecological, economic, and even public safety consequences. What began as an effort to control nature has become a threat that reshapes entire rivers and serves as a reminder that unplanned interventions can become long-term ecological disasters. Number 8. Rabbits, the sweet disguise of chaos. With long ears and a twitching nose, they seem harmless, even cute. But behind this angelic appearance lies a destructive force. In 1859, only 24 rabbits were brought from Australia to the United States for hunting purposes. Less than a century later, the population exploded to 10 billion. A female can produce up to 40 offspring per year. Without natural predators, they devastated pastures, native flora, and caused severe erosion. Imagine the impact on an ecosystem already weakened by the arid climate of the American Southwest. A simple introduction mistake turned into a continental scale ecological disaster. Invasive species are organisms that, when introduced to environments outside their original area, end up causing negative impacts on the ecosystem, economy, and even human health. They often arrive accidentally or even with good intentions, but the consequences can be devastating, permanently altering the balance of natural habitats. Number 9. Asian longhorned beetle, the invisible hatchet of the forests. The Asian longhorned beetle, Anoplophora glabropenis, native to China and Korea, is one of the most destructive invasive species detected in North America's urban and rural forests. This small insect with a shiny black body, irregular white spots, and long antennae often longer than its body may seem harmless at first, yet its silent actions have devastating consequences, transforming landscapes, ecosystems, and local economies into zones of quiet destruction. The beetle was introduced to US soil mainly through international trade. Pallets, crates, and wooden packaging from infested regions arrived at ports untreated, carrying hidden insects in cracks and crevices. Once released, they found perfect conditions to thrive: abundant hardwood trees, a favorable climate, and no natural predators. The life cycle of the Asian longhorned beetle is a major factor in its silent destruction. Adult females lay dozens of eggs in cavities they bore into healthy tree bark. Tiny larvae hatch and tunnel deep into the trunk, feeding on the xylem and phloem. This internal attack disrupts sap flow, gradually killing the tree, often without visible signs until it is too late. Maple, poplar, willow, chestnut, and balsam trees are particularly vulnerable. Over 180,000 trees have been cut down and destroyed in the US and Canada since the initial infestation, with direct economic impacts exceeding 1 billion. Indirect effects: loss of urban shade, reduced air quality, increased soil erosion, and destruction of habitats for native birds and insects are equally significant. significant. The devastation extends beyond the economy, deeply affecting human well-being. Century-old trees that adorned streets, parks, and yards disappear, changing landscapes and reducing communities' connection with nature. Controlling the Asian longhorned beetle is complex. No pesticides can completely eradicate the infestation without environmental damage. Tree removal and destruction remain the most reliable measures, though painful for ecologists, homeowners, and municipalities. Continuous monitoring programs, tree inspections, quarantine areas, and strict treatment of imported wood packaging are essential. Educational campaigns encourage citizens to identify infestation signs, such as circular holes in the bark, fine sawdust at the base, and visible adult beetles in summer. The beetle affects more than native trees. It profoundly alters urban and rural ecosystems. Mass tree death reduces biodiversity, as many birds and small mammals rely on these trees for nesting and shelter. Native insects lose critical habitats. Vegetation loss contributes to higher urban temperatures and reduced absorption of air pollutants, harming human health. Historically, the arrival of the Asian longhorned beetle illustrates the dangers of global trade without strict wood transportation regulations. Each untreated pallet or package represents a risk of introducing invasive species capable of transforming entire ecosystems. This beetle, through stealth and reproductive efficiency, exemplifies how globalization can inadvertently cause environmental disasters. Though small, its impact is colossal. Its nickname, the invisible hatchet of the forests, reflects its ability to silently destroy economically and ecologically valuable. Number 10. Lionfish, the most beautiful and deadly Caribbean predator. With vibrant stripes and majestic fins, the lionfish looks like it belongs in a luxury aquarium, but its beauty hides a danger. Native to the Indo-Pacific, it was introduced to the Atlantic by aquarium enthusiasts in the 1980s. Without natural predators, its population exploded. A single female can release up to 2 million eggs per year. It devours small fish and crustaceans, decimating reef biodiversity and threatening local fisheries. A single lionfish can consume 90% of a reef's juvenile fish in 5 weeks. Its dorsal spines are venomous and can cause intense pain in humans. Commercial fishing and consumption initiatives have been encouraged, but the lionfish continues to swim freely. Beautiful. Number 11. House sparrow, the innocent-looking invader, an invader with an innocent face. In 1851, gardeners in New York released 100 house sparrows in Brooklyn to control insects. But look at what happened. They ended up creating an ecological monster. Today, this species is present in almost every city and village in the US, extremely adaptable. House sparrows nest on rooftops, poles, trees, and practically any urban corner. Their diet is diverse: seeds, insects, and even trash. But the danger goes beyond that. House sparrows are territorial and quite violent. They expel native species from nests, break eggs, and even kill vulnerable chicks, such as the eastern bluebird. In rural areas, they cause significant crop losses by consuming grains and sprouts. Already fully established, eradication is practically impossible, a classic case of good intentions leading to a biological. Number 12. Eurasian wild boar, America's wild tractor. Originating from Europe, Asia, and North Africa, wild boars were brought to North America by Spanish explorers in the 10th century. But it was in the 20th century, with the import of more aggressive breeds for sport hunting, that the problem exploded. Today, over 3 million wild boars are estimated to inhabit the US, mainly in the South from Texas to Florida. They root through the soil like living tractors, destroying crops, wetlands, and native ecosystems. They also accelerate erosion and alter waterways. They carry diseases such as brucellosis and swine fever. Their aggressive behavior poses a threat to livestock, wildlife, and humans. In states like Texas, hunting is legal and encouraged, even with helicopters. But with litters of up to 12 piglets several times a year, control is an almost impossible challenge. Number 13. Gypsy moth, the northern appetite destroyer. In 1869, a French entomologist brought the gypsy moth to Massachusetts as part of a silk production experiment, but some escaped and disaster began. Today, this species invades more than 20 states in the eastern US and parts of Canada. Its ravenous larvae can devour entire forests in a matter of days, weakening trees and leaving them vulnerable to pests and diseases. With over 300 plant species on its menu, its appetite knows no bounds. Every year, the government invests over $3 billion in pesticides, traps, and eradication programs. But the battle is far from over. Small, silent, but devastating, the gypsy moth remains one of the biggest threats to North America's temperate forests. Number 14. Snakehead fish, the predator that walks on land. The northern snakehead, nicknamed Channa argus, was first spotted in a Maryland lake in 2002. Since then, it has spread to states like Virginia, New York, and Pennsylvania. Native to Asia, this fish is a formidable predator. It can breathe atmospheric air thanks to a special organ and survive up to 4 days out of water. Yes, it literally crawls over land in search of new bodies of water. It eats fish, amphibians, insects, and even small mammals. With no natural predators in the US, it reproduces quickly and disrupts aquatic food chains. Its presence is so problematic that in many states it is illegal to keep it alive. Captured snakeheads must be killed. Number 15. Fire ant, tiny red soldiers that strike fear. The Solenopsis invicta, or fire ant, came from South America in the 1930s, likely via commercial ships. Since then, it has spread rapidly throughout the southeastern United States. Despite their tiny size, they are aggressive, territorial, and highly dangerous. Their venom contains piperidine alkaloids, causing burns, inflammation, and even potentially fatal anaphylactic shocks. These ants attack everything from tadpoles and turtles to electrical equipment, causing short circuits and serious infrastructure failures. With superpopulated colonies and rapid reproduction, they are now one of the greatest challenges in controlling invasive species in the United States. Thank you very much for watching the video. If you enjoyed our content, subscribe to our channel and leave a like. Also, check out other interesting content that's appearing on your screen right now, and I'll see you in the next video. Until next time.